Blog Talk Radio.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a very special afternoon edition of IHWE Radio. Thank you for joining us wherever you are, if you're listening to us live, and if you're going to download us later, thank you for that. I'm David Fuller, the founder of IHWE Professional Wrestling out of Fort Worth, Texas, standing by with one of the most legendary wrestling personalities of all time. He has literally done everything there is to do in wrestling except pop the popcorn, and he will do that on Sunday night, September 28th, when he is in Fort Worth, Texas, for IHWE's Old School Hustle. The man himself, Mr. Jim Cornette. Thank you, Jim, for joining us.
David, thank you for having me. And, yes, I will be popping the corn. And also, I'm an old wrestling guy, so I know the tricks. I'm going to salt that popcorn extra well so you sell a lot more drinks.
Thank you very much. It's like the old adage, you sell the nachos and you put just a drop of jalapeno sauce in the nacho cheese. So the tough guy who wants to just buy the nachos without the drink is up there 5 minutes later asking for water, soda, whatever he can get his hands on.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, you're right down there in Texas, and you have probably heard the story that Paul Bearer used to tell about, you know, he was a big fan of the Dallas Sportatorium French fries. And he loved to get there early before the show, and he'd go out and, you know, you'd smell the concession stand and everything, and he'd get a big bunch of those French fries, and he loved them. They had this giant industrial deep fryer in the Sportatorium. And, well, one day the health department came in, and for some reason they decided to make them drain that deep fryer, which then they discovered that it probably hadn't been drained in, a few years, and at the bottom they found all the rat bones where the rats in the Sportatorium would fall off the overhead beams and fall into the deep fryer and add to the flavoring of the French fries. And after that, Percy never really had a taste for the French fries anymore.
I understand. Wow. And by rats, you mean the physical rodents, not the other kind of rats.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the two-legged good-looking ones. I'm talking about the four-legged ones that had faces like Kevin Dunn.
Oh, yes. Hashtag Beaver Butt Tooth. All right. That's great. I went to the Sportatorium one time. For living in Fort Worth, I only went one time. I used to go to the Will Rogers shows and the Tarrant County Convention Center shows. I only went to the Sportatorium one time. I made the ridiculous decision, me and my brother-in-law, we made the ridiculous decision. Fritz Von Erich just passed away, and I remember I called Mark Lawrence because I was a Mark, and that's what I did to people. Called Mark Lawrence, and he said, I'm going to be at the Sportatorium Friday. We're doing a special for Fritz. I was like, okay, great. We were going to go to Amarillo for the Terry Funk 50 Years of Funk, where Terry Funk wrestled Bret Hart in his probably 14th retirement match of 57.
Well, actually, he billed that as his last match in Amarillo, and I think he actually possibly has upheld that. And I was the one actually that facilitated Bret Hart's booking for that show because Bret was obviously under contract to the WWF at the time. Right. And when I pitched it to him, he said, Terry Funk asked to wrestle me in his last match in Amarillo. Where's my ticket? That's all I needed to talk Bret Hart into that.
Right. Did you book Dennis Stamp for the show?
No, Dennis wasn't booked, believe it or not. No, I think he was there. I wasn't the one that booked him, but it wasn't my week to watch Dennis.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, we made the decision to go to Dallas instead of making the drive to Amarillo on Thursday, and we went to Dallas, and it was a guy by the name of Buster Blackheart was running, I believe, the Confederate or the Continental Wrestling Association. Well, needless to say, it was not even a shell of what it used to be. It was maybe a popcorn kernel of what it used to be. And I think Brian Adias wrestled in the main event. And Brian Adias was the only guy there that I recognized. There was maybe 20 or 30 people there. They had a 10 bell for Fritz. Mark Lawrence came in the ring and said some nice things about Fritz. And, I mean, it was as good an effort as they could put out at the time. But we made a very poor decision, and we still talk about it to this day, but that was the only time I went to the Sportatorium, and the only thing I remember was the bathrooms. They looked like big horse troughs, or just, it was disgusting. And I never went back.
That was a classic building. It dated back like to the 30s, and the reason why the shape was so odd, you may know, is because and I believe it was the late 40s, half of it was burned down in an arson case from the middle of a wrestling promotional war. And so they just instead of rebuilding that half of it, they just put that wall across the left-hand side and kind of left it that way. That's why the arena only had seats on 3 sides. And it definitely had its own charm. And I was sitting in the Heels locker room one night talking to the one-man gang, and all of a sudden they had the swinging doors like the doors in an old Western saloon you expect John Wayne to walk through, right? Well, in walks Kelly Kaniski, and as soon as he does, something hits me on the shoulder, and I thought he threw something at me. I said, "Hey, what are you doing?" He said, "What do you mean?" And I looked down, and out of the ceiling fan had come a rat the size of a squirrel, and it had landed on my shoulder and then hopped down to the bench next to me, and I leaped up from a sitting position, actually broad jumped the one-man gang, ended up on the other side of him. And so I went out later on to get a cold drink, and I saw Doyle King from Q102 down there, Texas Best Rock. By the way, at least it was 30 years ago. And I don't know about now. And I said, "Doyle," I said, "God," I said, this rat just jumped on my shoulder. He said, "I saw it. It was as big as a dog." I said, "No, it was only about this." He said, "No, the one I saw was as big as a dog, and it was walking across one of the pipes in the ceiling." And I said, "Well, I guess he was looking for his grandson because I found him."
Wow. Doyle's actually we have a show at the end of the month. We have a live event in Fort Worth, and Doyle's actually going to be the master of ceremonies. So yeah, Doyle's worked with us before. I like Doyle. He's an odd duck, but he's a good one. So yeah.
Well, speaking of odd
anyway,
ducks, you have an eclectic group coming to Old School Hustle on September 28th. I'm going to be in good company there. Everybody from the grappler Lynn Denton to Stan Hansen to Barbara Goodish to Connie Gordy. Charlie Haas is going to be there. Kyle O'Reilly, a friend of mine from Ring of Honor. You've got a very exotic mix coming to Old School Hustle in Fort Worth.
I do, and I was on. We interviewed Lynn Denton last night on our weekly Wednesday night podcast, and I called in and we were talking about Bam Bam because last night on IHWE that's available on IHWEnow.com, we aired the Terry Gordy Memorial Battle Royal, and Connie Gordy was there to present the winner of the Battle Royal, which was Thomas Shire. He's a pupil of Dory Funk Jr. He won the Battle Royal and won the Memorial Cup. I told Lynn Denton, and he was just ecstatic about coming back down here and being with you and being with Stan Hansen. I told Lynn, I said, I want to bring the old school fans. I want to bring the old school to the new school, and none of us are promised tomorrow. And I'm ecstatic. It's a dream for me. I grew up here in the '80s, and I was a big wrestling fan. Watched everything I could possibly get my eyes on at the time. Watched Jim Crockett, watched Vince's stuff, watched World Class, watched Vern's stuff, and I was a fan from the first time I saw Andre the Giant. So getting to be with you stars, you legends, it's a big deal for me. And having Charlie Haas and Kyle O'Reilly down here, I think really brings the just the whole generational thing, because you go from you, Hansen, Grappler, to Haas, to O'Reilly, to the stars of tomorrow and today. And then Connie's just been so supportive of us, and Barbara has as well. Barbara was going to come down to last year's Hall of Fame, and at the last minute she couldn't make it when we honored Bruiser Brody. So we've been wanting to meet for forever, and I just finally told her, I said, you know what, we're bringing you down, come on. And she's just ecstatic. So I'm really looking forward to meeting her, and it's just going to be a really fun time. I think the talent, it's good for the talent and it's good for the fans, because talent gets to work around such legendary figures such as yourself, Stan Hansen, Lynn Denton, and the fans win because they get to see this super card of old school and new school. Nobody ever does that around here. No one does that down here in Texas. It's always the East Coast. It's your Legends of the Ring shows up in New Jersey, or it's what Greg Price does in the Mid-Atlantic area. Nobody ever does it down here. Matt Riviera did it at WrestleMania weekend with Mid-South Legends, but no one ever does it down here. And it's
that's why you're doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I'm looking forward to it also, getting to see a lot of the newer guys down there, as well as some of the guys that I haven't seen in a long time. I actually, for a brief period of time, managed the Grapplers when Lynn was in Memphis with his partner Tony Anthony. when Lynn first put the mask on back around, probably 78 or 79, he had a great run in Mid-South Wrestling working for Bill Watts and was a top heel down there, and then came up to the Tennessee territory, and they put young Tony Anthony, who would later become, obviously, the Dirty White Boy, and that was due to Lynn also, put him under a mask, and they were the Grapplers, a tag team, and that's when I was Jimmy Hart's understudy in his first family. He managed literally every heel in the territory. But he couldn't be in two places at once, so when they ran two towns, I would go and be the junior manager at ringside, right? So I got a chance to learn from Lynn, and Tony was learning from Lynn as well. Then they took the masks off briefly and got the Dirty White Boys gimmick as a team. And when that ran its course, then Lynn, of course, put the mask back on, and he had huge success in Portland, et cetera, else where he still lives. And so it's going to be good seeing him. I don't know if I'll recognize him after not seeing him for almost 30 years and used to looking at him with a mask on. If he better come up to me with the mask, or I might not know him. That's back when guys, when they were under a mask, they protected their identities. I remember in Mid-South Wrestling, the Midnight Express and I wrestled Magnum TA and Mr. Wrestling 2 every night, literally every night in the territory for 6 weeks before I ever saw Wrestling 2 with his mask off. And wow. That wasn't in the building because he always arrived, left, and showered with the mask on, but we actually saw him driving down the road and recognized his car.
Oh, wow.
And once I got a chance to see him, then I realized why Johnny was wearing the mask.
We have a gentleman down here who works under the name Spoiler 2000. He was trained by Skandar Akbar, and he started late in the game. He's an older man, but he looks in fantastic shape. You wouldn't recognize him now. I think he's in his early 50s, but he looks like he's in his mid-30s. He's in that good of shape. But he's big, and he's just like that. And he was trained by Skandar Akbar 16 years ago. And he actually called Don Jardine and got his blessing on doing this evolution of Spoiler, Spoiler 2000, and Jardine
right.
was like, oh yeah, go ahead, I'll pat you on the back, give you that endorsement. He's a traditionalist in every form imaginable, and he was Akbar. He's like a son to Akbar. So he's going to be down here wrestling. He's already had a knee replacement, so this will probably be the last time he ever laces up a pair of boots. But, man, when I told him you were going to be there and Stan Hansen and Lynn Denton, he was, oh, brother, I can't wait. So, I mean, I told Lynn about that. So he's going to be down here, and he does the mask thing. He does the same thing, Jim. When he gets to the building in his car, he's got the mask on, and he doesn't take it off until he's either on the highway. Hopefully he takes it off once he gets on the highway because he'll probably get pulled over. But, yeah, he's just like that. So I think
well, and I remember also a guy no stranger to Texas, Mil Mascaras. Obviously one of the, besides El Santo, maybe the most famous Lucha Libre star of all time. I fancied myself quite a star, a personality in the wrestling industry back in 1989, or it was early 90. I had already been a main event manager for years with the Midnight Express, and I was on the WCW booking committee working under Ric Flair, appointed by him, and I was pretty confident that I had made it in the world of wrestling. And then at the Corpus Christi airport, I actually got to see Mil Mascaras get off the plane in a suit and tie, of course, as he always traveled, but without his mask. And I believe it was, if it wasn't Flair, it was Kevin Sullivan pointed out to me, there's Mascaras. And I was like a giddy 12-year-old girl going, oh, my God, I'm seeing Mil Mascaras without his mask on. Oh, my God, oh, my God. If there were cell phones and cameras and things like that you just carry around with you at that point in time, I obviously wouldn't have tweeted it out or shared it, but I would have taken a picture for myself, right? But but that was a landmark day in my personal wrestling history.
That's awesome. That's awesome. One thing I was going to tell you, and I keep forgetting to tell you, so I'm just going to tell you on the air because there's probably only a handful of people listening to this right now.
I was about to say, if you're on this, really, David, the chances are that nobody's listening, so go ahead. That's true.
Yep. That's true. And hopefully they'll be fans of the show because I've got you coming and not for me. I've got a tub, a literal plastic tub of wrestling magazines from the 70s and 80s that a friend brought back to me in June. I know you're a collector. I will bring them to you sometime over the weekend when you're down here, and you can take whatever you want. Some of these.
Well, I appreciate that. I always accept free merchandise and gifts. I make that a rule, never to turn down anything that is given to me for free, and I would be more than happy to take those off your hands. And we're going to have plenty of time to spend together, because not only am I part of the show that night, but also we're doing the live Jim Cornette Experience Q&A at 2 o'clock that afternoon. Have you told the folks now, you don't have to sit there for like 6 hours. It's a 5 o'clock bell time, I believe, on the 28th, right?
Yes, here's the deal. At 2 o'clock, Jim Cornette will air or he will be participating. He will be hosting. Actually, Craig Johnson of Global Wrestling Federation will be hosting along with Jim.
The biggest Jim Johnson I've ever seen, by the way. Hello to Craig Johnson. He's a skyscraper. He's a giant.
Him and Jim will be hosting the Jim Cornette Experience, a live Q&A, and you can participate in that for only $10. And if you're a VIP ticket holder, which you can buy right now on IHWEnow.com, you can buy both Jim Cornette Experience for $10 at 2 p.m. and the IHWE Old School Hustle VIP ticket for $20. You can get in at 3 p.m. right after the Cornette Experience. Get in. You can meet Jim. You can meet Stan. You can meet the superstars who are there. And,
we're talking autographs. We're talking pictures. We're kissing babies. Right. We're doing the whole thing. Preferably, bring your babies for us to kiss. Preferably, they'll be female between the ages of 18 and 25. Yes. And I think Kyle O'Reilly would echo that sentiment. With O'Reilly around, there'll probably be a few babies between the ages of 18 and 25 there.
Probably. So from 3 to 4, VIP ticket holders can get in. You can take your pictures, and then at 4 o'clock, we're going to open the doors for general admission ticket holders. But I'm going to do something really cool. The bell time's at 5 p.m., but I want people to get there at 4. You VIP ticket holders need to get there and get your seats front row only for VIP ticket holders. And at 4 o'clock, about 4:15, I'm going to start putting matches out. I'm going to give y'all 3 live matches for IHWEnow.com. They'll be separate from the IHWE TV tapings that start at 5 o'clock. But I'm going to give you 3 live matches in between the 4 and 5 o'clock hour. But so you're going to need to get there and get inside. And the wonderful thing is about the building is we have a giant screen. And these matches aren't going to air one right after another. There's going to be a break in between the matches. That way people can meet Jim Cornette. You can meet Stan Hansen. You can meet all the legends, still watch matches, get your seat together, and then at 5 o'clock we go live with IHWE TV tapings, Old School Hustle. So there's going to be a lot of bang.
A plethora, a preponderance of pro wrestling pachyderms will be pummeling their opponents on a constant basis all day. For the low ticket prices, how much entertainment can one stand in just one day?
That's correct. So $20 for VIP, you get a poster, you get a front row ticket, you get to get inside an hour early and meet legends and superstars. 4 o'clock, general admission ticket holders, $10. And it's going to be, wow.
That's the thing about the IHWA, David. Let's be honest. You're giving away the story. You're giving away everything. When I'm in the building, I believe I'm going to have to look out for my wallet, because you're liable to just pull that out of my pocket and give that away too, because you're just giving people everything. This is a blowout.
It is, and I'm excited. And you may want to keep an eye on that. It might not be me, Jim, because I don't get my hands dirty. But I'm not saying Black Bart. He might be a little more, he might be a little...
I've known Black Bart for about 30 years, and every time I've seen him, his hands were always dirty. But that's the way I met my friend Kenny Bolin here in Louisville. I was actually at the Oldham County Fair one year when I was a teenager, and I was at the booth where you shoot the water in the clown's mouth, and I reached in my back pocket to get my wallet and pay for my ticket, and as I reached in my back pocket, I shook hands with Kenny Bolin, and we've been friends ever since.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, yes, September 28th, a lot of good stuff going on. IHWEnow.com has all the information. One thing we're going to touch on here really quick, and more information is going to come out in the future weeks because we're still trying to figure this out. Jim Cornette has literally probably entered into his last deal in professional wrestling because he has actually agreed to work with me.
Now
and
don't say it that way. Don't say it that way, because then people think, what, he's got like terminal hooping belch, and this is it's it for Jim. I don't do a lot with professional wrestling anymore, because the modern product, a lot of the people in charge of it tends to give me the sour belches. But not only have I talked to you a lot over the past couple months, but I've talked to some people about you. I've gotten a lot of good feedback on the way that you do business and the way you not only take care of wrestling history down there in Texas and try to preserve it, but take care of the legends and the pioneers of the business. And so I have agreed to, and once again, this is not a full-time job, folks, so I'm not breaking my promise to myself, but I'm going to be kind of a roving ambassador for the IHWA and stick my nose in where necessary and try to open some doors or get some publicity for you, because I think that for the business, especially these days, and we can talk about the problems that TNA has and et cetera, but for the business to not just to succeed, but just to remain in existence, the grassroots, local promotions done right, treating wrestling with some respect, is the only thing that's going to save our industry for the next generation. So I'm happy to help you and to be a part of that whenever possible.
Well, thank you. And I had a whole joke lined up. I was gonna say.
Did I step on it?
No, that's all right. That's all right, because it's still golden. I just got to get it out. Jim, the good thing about it is Jim's going to help with the product whenever he can. He's given a majority of his life to professional wrestling, and he has earned the right to enjoy his life, which he is going to. He's just going to be piping in here and there when he's needed and help out. But the beautiful part is IHWE will benefit from this. And if Jim doesn't, well, then two things are going to happen. Number one, he has a whole new plethora of content for kayfabe commentaries. Sean Oliver listening, you can start writing down notes right now. And Jim's next book title will be, I thought the worst was Jim Herd until I met David Fuller. So either way, we both win. So
yeah, well, once again, as Kenny Bolin once said, he said, Jim, you were a great manager for a long time, but I was able to submerge past you. Well, you might just on September 28th submerge past Jim Herd if you get on the wrong side of me and try. No, I'm kidding.
So there you go, Sean Oliver. Take notes right now. Start making. You probably get 3 volumes out of this. Timelines, breaking kayfabe, anything you want. You've got to probably get them out of this little experiment that we do. So. All right.
Well, and also this oh my gosh, a bird just flew into my office window. Possibly.
Oh man.
I don't know, maybe it was a suicide pigeon from the WWE. But they Sean Oliver and Kayfabe Commentaries. I'm going to be starting a new series that we can't talk about just yet, but it'll be a different type of series than what they've done before, and I will be the host of that. And we're going to be shooting the initial episodes in September in New Jersey. So. That gives me a reason to go to New Jersey. You know, it's very ironic they named New Jersey the Garden State. I think the only reason that those flowers grow is because they're growing in a bed of toxic sludge, judging from the odor that you get on the New Jersey Turnpike. But I like going up northeast once a year just to remind myself that's why I don't live there. I love the people, don't like the area of the country, but I'm looking forward to coming back to Texas because I did used to live there and I actually enjoyed it.
All right, very good. Well, we're very excited to have you here, so I can't wait. Real quick, TNA, who you worked for on a couple of different occasions, last week participated. They actually initiated their biggest marketing and awareness and social media campaign that I've seen since they went to Monday Night back in 2010. I don't follow the product with a microscope. I just happen to catch it every once in a while. The big culmination of a storyline where Bully Ray finally took the Wicked Witch of Nashville, TNA, Dixie Carter, and put her through a table during the tapings they did at the Manhattan Center in New York City. The press release that was sent out by TNA touted that the rating was either as high or bigger in an episode of Impact that took place in February. My question is this. I know you don't follow the product because you want to keep your sanity. I want to know.
I did see the clip. I saw the clip.
You did see the clip? Okay.
I'm up on that at least.
Should it have been huge, bigger, monumental, or does it matter anymore what they do at this point?
Well, the funny thing is they've probably, because it's hard. The people on the TNA creative team have about as much experience in the professional wrestling industry as I have with NASA. And right. So they have apparently convinced themselves and also apparently convinced Dixie that the heat that she has is great, like old-time heel heat, where, yeah, we build the heat up on you and then they want to see the babyface get even. That's the way it worked when everybody wasn't smart to wrestling and that everything was predetermined and that the office was calling the shots and et cetera. Then you would build heat on a heel, and finally the big payoff and the big blow-off and the big house was to see the heel get their comeuppance in whatever form. But in this case, the people that were wanting to see Dixie Carter put through the table were the fans that are smart to the business and know what's going on. She didn't have ticket-selling, money-drawing heel heat. She had, we hate you, you fucking bitch, you've ruined this wrestling company, and we want to see somebody kill you heat. Not that we're going to spend any money to see it, and not that we're probably going to come back next week, but just for the sake of it, we will tune in to see somebody put you through a table and hopefully paralyze you, is basically the feeling that I got from not only the press reports about it and what people have written about it, seeing it in person. I equate it to, I said one time that probably the biggest crowd that could be drawn in wrestling right now is for Vince Russo's funeral, because you give the people what they want to see and they'll come out for it. But in this case, it didn't do them any good to put all this heat on Dixie, who's not at least Stephanie McMahon's a good television performer. It just made it look like a copy of the WWF. Here's another woman in charge, a heel woman, although she's older and not as hot, even though Dixie fancies herself. And, you know, she's airbrushed a lot, and they have the fan blowing her hair when she poses for all of the... She used to pose for the photographer for pictures at TNA before she was even an on-camera personality. As a matter of fact, one time she was late, a plane was delayed, and she called ahead and had one of the TNA stooges clear all of the knockouts that were going to be wrestling, that were on camera, that were part of the show that night, cleared them all out of the women's makeup room so she could run right in and get her makeup done so she could go out in the arena and pose for pictures holding the belt with the fans.
Wow.
That's the owner of the company, folks. She's a complete blithering idiot. She's a narcissist. She thinks she's beautiful. She thinks she's a Southern belle. She thinks that she's established this empire, and everybody, including the people that work for her and take her money, laugh at her behind her back because of the stupid decisions she's made by listening to every self-serving asshole in wrestling that was trying to or continues to try to get a spot and a check at the expense of the welfare, the long-term future of the company and the people that are trying to get it over. And every time she's faced with a decision, she invariably makes the wrong one. And so, as far as the television situation, Spike has told them they're not renewing. They're telling the boys that they're still talking, and they are still talking. I mean, it's not like Spike said, go away, we're never going to speak to you again. They're just not going to air their fucking program. Because they're sick and tired of, there's been problems with deadlines being met because TNA's on a skeleton staff because the only money really that they take in is from the Spike contract. There was problems with the, Spike kicked in starting, I believe it started with Kurt Angle. I'm not sure. If it didn't, it started with the next big signing. But Spike, over the past 5-6 years, has chipped in on the money to pay Hulk Hogan, chipped in on the money to pay Eric Bischoff, chipped in on the money to pay Jeff Hardy, Sting, etc. The big contracts that they've given out, as well as their fool's errand of switching to Monday nights. Spike went along with that. Spike went along with taking it on the road. Spike went along with everything, spent more and more money, and got fewer and fewer ratings. So now they've come to the conclusion, I'm sure, that why are we spending all this money when we could run, cops reruns that we wholly own and lease and don't have to deal with these people. And then there was the matter of Dixie lying to her television partner and saying Vince Russo was not involved. Now, I'm not saying that Vince Russo, they found out they loved the program, everybody's happy, suddenly Vince Russo's involved with it, oh, shit, turn that shit off, cancel that. No, that's not what happened. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, because several years ago, the people at Spike had come to the conclusion, much later than everybody else, that Vince Russo was a hack, and wanted assured that he had nothing to do with the program that they were trying to present on their air and draw ratings on. And Dixie told them, well, of course he doesn't have anything to do with it. Lying the whole time, much as they lied to the talent and to the public last year when they said the company was not for sale. The rumors are untrue. Dixie Carter's mother sent out a letter saying, no, TNA Wrestling isn't for sale, to all the talent and the personnel. Problem was, they had been having talks. And there were people in the business in the office looking at the business, and Jeff Jarrett was involved with that. And they were very close on money. They weren't together, but they were very close on money to purchase TNA Wrestling. And the negotiations actually went all the way to Bob Carter, the old man, the head honcho, the senior guy. And the hang-up was not the money. The hang-up was that to save Dixie's little Southern Belle face, he wanted her to still have a title in the company and still be an on-air personality of some kind, and that's the reason why they were trying to get the company away from her. So they said, well, fuck it then. We'll just, rather than do that, we'll start one from scratch. That's when Jeff gave his notice, when he saw that wasn't going to come to fruition, because the guy's lost tens of millions of dollars, and he's still worried about hurting his daughter's feelings. I think Dixie Carter should have had a job at a goddamn Jack in the Box when she was a kid, instead of having that silver spoon stuck up her twat. And maybe she wouldn't be as cavalier with everybody's livelihoods as to, continue to do these things and continue to lie about it. They lied that Russo wasn't involved to Muta and his Wrestle One, the Japanese promotion. They were trying to do a deal with them. They lied to them because they asked, has Vince Russo got anything involved to do with this? If so, we don't want any part of it. And they lied to them, and Muta found out. They lied to Spike. They found out. They lied to the world. What does it say when you hire somebody to do a job and they are so universally disliked and disrespected that you have to lie to everybody in your own company and everybody outside it to say, no, this person is not working for us, to avoid a problem with your business partners? And Dixie, more than anybody else, ought to know exactly what the problem with that was, because it was Jeff Jarrett lying to her about a relationship between him and Karen Angle before it became public, that caused Dixie to send Jeff home to begin with and take his power away, which led to Dutch Mantell being gone and me being gone and Savio Vega being gone and everybody else that Jeff had being gone, and started the downslide when Russo finally got done what he wanted to do, was con a money mark into thinking that he knew what the fuck he was doing, and then he was in charge, and then here comes Hogan, who hates Russo, and then here comes Bischoff, who probably don't like anybody, and then there was that whole downward slide that started because of a business partner lying to another business partner. And Dixie Carter, as usual, didn't learn a goddamn thing. She don't know shit from apple butter about what the fuck is going on still to this day in the wrestling business, because she just doesn't belong. So anyway, I'm not taking pride in this, and I'm not laughing at this because talent or wrestlers or the boys are going to lose their jobs. But how many times, David, have you watched Ridiculousness or America's Funniest Videos, and you see the guy out in the middle of a blizzard with a chainsaw that he got from Walmart going to cut down a giant redwood tree 12 feet in front of his house, and his wife's running a video camera going, I don't think you ought to do that. That probably ain't a good idea. Or how many times have you seen the guy that's going to slalom down a 60-foot waterfall on a flattened-out cardboard box, and his friends are shooting it, and they're going, oh, you better not do that, and they do it anyway? Then you got to fucking laugh at them, because how stupid do you have to be when people tell you on a regular basis you are doing stupid things and you continue to do them? It's not funny that wrestlers are going to lose their job. It's not funny that the business is going to go deeper in a hole than it already is. But it's certainly funny that this clueless twat has not been able to yet figure out why not only has her business continued to fail and why she spent tens of millions of her father's dollars in the process of that failing, but she still doesn't understand why people are snickering at her behind her back, because she's an idiot. So I just comment on those things.
Okay. What was I going to ask?
It's so quiet. I feel like E.F. Hutton just spoke.
No. I had some questions here. I'm gonna go back to 1993. Late at night, what I'll do is finally when the day winds down, I'll go back and read old Wrestling Observers and Figure 4 Weeklies from Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer. And I like really studying the history of the business and trying to learn as much as I can. It was a big deal when Jim Cornette signed on with the World Wrestling Federation. It was nobody could have fathomed it for whatever reason. I was a little bit younger.
Well, maybe one of the reasons is I'd always said that hell would freeze over before I'd work for that cartoon wrestling company.
So it's 1993. Maniac Matt Bourne is Doink the Clown, one of I'm sure your friend, one of my friends, and he's making it work, but it's Doink the Clown. There's still a lot of that going on, and you show up, and you are the American spokesperson behind, I believe, one of the most underrated, overlooked WWF champions of all time, Yokozuna, who had his demons, had his issues, but I believe that guy was one of the most talented big men to ever step into a ring. What brought you to the dance?
Well, and I'll tell you, and it had to do with a Texas boy. And by the way, Yoko, not just one of the most talented big men, he was one of the most talented men that ever stepped in the ring, because when you think about the only thing that he couldn't control his weight. But when you think about a guy north of 600 pounds that could move the way he did and do the things he did, and a world-class athlete was covered up in that body, and he still was a world-class athlete at 600 pounds. Can you imagine if he could have kept it to 3 or 350, what he would have been capable of? But what happened was real simple. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. And I was running Smoky Mountain Wrestling out of Knoxville, and we had just done the initial deal in a long-term deal that I was going to do with Cowboy Bill Watts, because Watts had taken over the wrestling operations at WCW for TBS. And for the first time in 3 years since I'd left the place, somebody that I actually could trust had power. And Bill had called me, and we started talking, and we started putting in motion the idea of talent trades and Smoky Mountain Wrestling being a place where he could get new talent from, because he had his eyes on the young guys that we had. And obviously he was ahead of the curve on that, because later on everybody noticed, hey, this Al Snow, hey, this Chris Candido, hey, this Tammy Sitch, hey, this Glenn Jacobs, who will later be Kane, hey, all these young guys that Cornette is finding are really performing. And at the same time, obviously, some of the guys that I had that had worked WCW for, including myself, still had some name value. And plus, Bill knew that he could trust me, because he knew that it was a bunch of sharks down there, and that everybody was trying to stab him in the back. Eric Bischoff was one of them, and that's why I've never liked Eric Bischoff to this day. And we've never spoken or had a relationship, because he was one of the pricks trying to undermine Bill Watts, and he actually was one of the ones that edited the angle that we did when the Heavenly Bodies and the Rock and Roll Express went down and burst on the scene, and at center stage on the TBS show, they edited heavily the surprise angle that we had told nobody we were going to do. Watts, I cleared it with him and nobody else because it was a surprise, and then found out that they'd fucked with it afterwards. So anyway, that was the beginning of the end. Point being, we went down there. It was going to be a long-term deal. It was going to be a lot of different business going on, and they didn't give Watts the power that they said they were going to. They were constantly fucking with him. You got the fat guy up in Pittsburgh that tries to claim that he got Watts fired. Watts had called me weeks before that saying that he was going home. That's why he put our deal in writing so they wouldn't fuck me afterwards. But we had been on WCW television and on their Super Brawl pay-per-view with the Rock and Roll Heavenly Bodies feud. Well, then, just literally 2 months later, Stan Lane had decided to retire and get out of the business. And so I needed a new member of the Heavenly Bodies to team with Dr. Tom Pritchard. And Kevin Sullivan, my good friend, recommended a kid from Florida who I'd seen a number of times named Jimmy Backlund, who became Jimmy Del Rey. And the way we introduced him as a member of the Heavenly Bodies was that he was Dr. Tom Pritchard's cousin. And it just so happened that on the night that he debuted on Smoky Mountain Television, Tom Pritchard's father came up from Texas to visit Tom and came to the taping. And, of course, Tom's brother is Bruce Pritchard, who was working with Vince and Pat Patterson in talent relations and booking at the time. So we did a little interview with me and Jimmy Del Rey, Tom Pritchard, and Tom's father, where we, basically it was a rib on Bruce, where we said, "Oh, you must be happy, Mr. Pritchard, now that another member of the Pritchard clan, the Pritchard family, is involved in pro wrestling. Jimmy Del Rey. Do you have any other members of the family involved in wrestling?" "Well, I got one son. He does that phony stuff up in New York, but we don't talk about him much. We don't recognize him in part of the family." And just a bunch of horrible shit we said about Bruce. Then I called Bruce up, and I say, "Bruce, it's great. We introed Jimmy Del Rey as Tom's cousin, and your dad was here visiting, so we got your dad to do a promo. We put it on Smoky Mountain Television." "Really?" "And he wants to see it." "I'll send you a VHS tape." So I sent him the tape. And he thought that it had been on television. Well, when he watched it, a couple of days later, I get the phone call. "Ha, motherfucker, very funny." And I'm like, "Oh, you watched the tape?" And he said, "Yeah, and I wasn't alone." And I still don't know who was in the room, but the next thing out of his mouth was, "Would you and the Heavenly Bodies like to make some shots up here in the WWF? We're short on talent, especially tag teams, and maybe make the Garden, maybe make some TVs, whatever." And I said, "Okay." I said, I'm running this company down here, and these are my top heels. I don't want to knock them out of a booking, but it would hurt me to lose them, and I can't leave full time. But if you just want shots, we can work something out. Because not only would that be extra payoffs for the boys, but potentially another talent conduit. And since now Watts was gone from WCW, and the enemy of my enemy is my friend, we were looking for any publicity for Smoky Mountain Wrestling and anything we could do to get bigger, and I said, okay. So I said, here's the problem. I don't want people to think that I have left Smoky Mountain Wrestling and that it's going away or something. And he said, oh, no problem. We'll mention you're in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. So for whatever reason, and I've hung up the phone going, why is he doing this? Vince McMahon had agreed to bring guys in for TV spots and pay-per-view spots on a part-time basis and acknowledge another promotion. Right. And I didn't get the answer as to why that had happened until we got to our first Raw taping a couple weeks later. It was July of '93. It was heading up on SummerSlam, and where Yoko was going to defend the title against Lex Luger that year.
Lex Luger.
And we walk in. It's in New York State. We'll walk in, and Bruce comes up and greets us, shows us where to go, and he says, "Would come back and meet Vince and Pat." And I'd met Vince, years before that, but
sure.
So we go in, and that's when they sat me down and said, "Say, while you're here, would you mind being the American spokesperson for Yokozuna?" Because they wanted to give Luger the big push. That's when Vince was convinced. Vince didn't know what we knew from a few years beforehand in
the Lex Express.
In WCW that Lex was not a natural babyface, and
right.
This might not take. But anyway, he asked if I would do that because they wanted to push Lex, the Lex Express. Yoko's manager was Mr. Fuji, who was a wrestling legend, great old-timer, still after 35 years in the United States did not have a great command of the English language.
Correct.
And so I agreed. I said, yeah. I said, along with the bodies, do Yoko? Okay, yeah, whatever. I'm here. I'll do whatever you want. They knew I wasn't going to come without my team, and they knew that I wasn't going to come without my company, my business being recognized and in some way benefited. So that was the trade-off, as I've found in hindsight, to get me to come up so that I could be the American spokesperson for Yokozuna. They were going to put the belt on Lex. Then the decision was made to hold it off till WrestleMania the following year, which is why that count-out finish and the balloon drop happened. And then by the time that WrestleMania had come about, Vince had soured on the idea and went in a completely different direction.
Right.
So
two things.
That was how hard it was. I had never wanted to go to the WWF. I had inquired one time when we were having a little contract kerfluffle back in early '88 with Jim Crockett. I had inquired on behalf of me and the Midnight Express one time. Vince had flown us up in '86 for a meeting, but we were the World Tag Team Champions for Crockett, making $200,000 a year apiece, fucking living in Charlotte and working with all of our friends, and saw that was the place for us instead of the WWF. And people find it hard to believe, but I got the call, hey, will you come here? Okay. And actually, That's pretty much the way it happened. I achieved another one of my goals in Texas, in Houston, WrestleMania 17. I wrestled as a wrestler on a WrestleMania card.
Battle Royal.
And it was that hard to get booked on that, too, because I'd called Bruce doing some Ohio Valley wrestling business, and he told me, he said, yeah, we're having a gimmick battle royal, and I'm going to be in it as Brother Love. And I just said, well, you ought to book me in the thing so we can go off in the corner and beat each other up and not get hurt. And he said, you want to be in it? I said, okay. It's all right, you're booked. So I got booked on WrestleMania just like that.
Well, two things come to mind. The first thing that comes to mind is when you came on Monday Night Raw, this was 1993, and I was young. Let's just put it that way. I knew who you were. I mean, I was a young kid, but I knew who you were, which shows you how much of a somebody you were as a performer, because I knew exactly who you were as soon as you showed up, and I wasn't getting Smoky Mountain Wrestling down here. So, I mean, yeah, I remember you from WCW. And
well,
so,
that's the thing also. If you go back and look at my initial debut that night on Raw, some people obviously knew who I was because I'd been on WCW and NWA television all through the 80s, but I'd been off national TV since the end of 1990, so that was almost 3 years. And the WWF audience, even back then, was it wasn't a complete crossover. A lot of people watched WWF, never watched WCW, and vice versa. But what made it was Bobby Heenan, bless him, the greatest manager that ever lived, was the color guy. And as soon as I start walking down the aisle, he starts going crazy. Is that, oh, my God, I can't believe, it's Jim Cornette. And he gets in the ring and gives me the big hug, and they had to shoot me from the waist up because I had a Woody, right? That Bobby Heenan, my childhood idol and the greatest manager of all time, is hugging me on national television. We had never gotten to work together before. That was the first time we ever got to work together, and he is the first manager I saw when I was a kid on television. So he gave me the big welcome. We had a ball with the promo. We had a ball visiting backstage, and then, of course, they kind of fucked Bobby around, and he left and took the offer with WCW like 2 months later. Yeah. So I never got to really spend a lot of time with him then, but that's what made it. And then instantly, once again, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, but the friend of my enemy is also my enemy. And when Bobby Heenan hugged me, the WWF fan said, well, this guy must be a prick.
Yeah, I remember Regis and Kathy Lee. I recorded it. I had to record it. Now, folks, I'm a kid. I'm in school. I had to set the damn VCR, the VCR Plus code, so I could record Jim Cornette and Yokozuna on Regis and Kathy Lee. And that was the morning of SummerSlam, because that year SummerSlam was on a Monday night. Back in the day, they did pay-per-views on Monday nights every once in a while. So that was on a Monday night, and you and Yokozuna did a promo on the Regis and Kathy Lee show. You were in a neck brace because you'd been pile-driven in Knoxville, Tennessee a few nights earlier, I presume for Smoky Mountain. And you did a tug-of-war, and there were 7 people on one side, and there was Yokozuna on the other. And that was the first time I ever saw Yokozuna smile. He kind of broke character just for a split second because he was having a bunch of fun with the tug-of-war. But I remember that, and I'm going to fast forward to one of the greatest. I thought this was one of the greatest angles I've ever seen. I still do to this day.
Well, wait a minute. Before you fast forward, let me just tell you about that day. That was a heck of a day because I had to fly from East Tennessee to New York the night before, get up. They took us in a limo to do the Regis and Kathy Lee show, which I think they were on ABC at the time, so the studio's up there. Then immediately to the airport, immediately to a plane to Detroit because SummerSlam was at the Palace in Auburn Hills. So that was all live television. We did Regis and Kathy Lee that morning live. We shot over to Detroit, up to Auburn Hills, got there mid-afternoon, and then not only did the Bodies have the match with the Steiners that night, but then also Yoko had the match with Luger. And the reason I mentioned, before you fast forward, I wore the neck brace because they'd only told me about a week beforehand, oh, you're going to do Regis and Kathy Lee, maybe not even that far ahead of time. And I told them when they called me, I said, well, I'm going to be wearing a neck brace. Why is that? Because we had our biggest crowd in the history of Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and the main event this past Friday night was Bob Armstrong versus me, and he pile drove me and sent me to the hospital, and I'm wearing a neck brace. And they said, well, you got to do what you got to do. So for the first time and possibly the last time in wrestling history, a local territories angle was upheld on national television, because if they'd told me, no, you can't wear the neck brace, I'd have had to say, well, no, I can't go on Regis and Kathy Lee because I'm not going to expose the business in Knoxville regardless.
Right, and that's character, and that should be respected. One of the greatest angles I'd ever seen, and it's forgotten about, of course, because I liked it. I thought the Attitude, most of the Attitude Era, I'm going to say this, and I'm going to go back to what I was saying. I thought most of the Attitude Era was complete garbage. Steve Austin, I'd watched from down here in Dallas. Loved Steve Austin. Some of the matches were great. Some of it was absolute garbage. I think more untalented guys were pushed during that era, which subsequently was the era that I broke in during, so that should tell you something. That era than any other era in the history of the business, just because they cussed, they did some ridiculous angle that involved nudity or whatnot. So I just, for the record, people were like, oh, we want to see the, I don't. Steve Austin was still 30, 35, 36 years old, and his neck wasn't screwed up. I'd love to have Steve Austin back on a permanent basis, and that's about it.
Well, you see, that's the thing, Steve Austin, and I talked to Steve on the phone here just recently, and we were talking about it. There's a quote that Terry Funk was credited with, but Johnny Valentine also said it, and who knows where it started. But it applied to Steve Austin. It applied to everybody in our business that's ever drawn big, serious, mega money. I can't make them believe that wrestling is real, but I can make them believe that I'm real. Right. And if you notice and you go back and you look at who drew big money, and I mean you can steal a house with anybody, but who drew big money over a long period of time in different places or consistently or whatever, they were always people that the fans could believe in, even if wrestling was hoo-ha. I believe that guy's legitimate, at least in how he presents himself and who he claims that he is. Right. And that's the secret.
Right. Steve was one of my favorites. I remember watching him pull down Tony Adams' torch or whatever the hell she was wearing on television down here on KTVT Channel 11, and there was a big blur black spot on her fanny, and Steve Austin presumed to thank her, and Mark Lawrence was throwing a huge fit on live television. I mean, that's how far I remember Steve Austin.
I can see Mark, because Mark Lawrence, I came out one night in Fort Worth. I said he was wearing a real black formal-looking suit. I said, Mark, you look like you just stepped off a wedding cake. Mark was a very low-key guy. He didn't get upset. He didn't really get involved in things. You know, he was detached, and also I believe he was a religious fella too, and he didn't like a lot of that, you know, borderline edgy type of material. But he had to go crazy over that. He had to go crazy.
Yes, he did.
It was like when in Dave Brown, my wife Stacy was Sin of the Disciples of Sin back in Memphis in 99, and she came off the top rope, going to give the babyface an elbow, and he moved, and she went through the table, and then Ali, the big babyface hero, was press slamming her and all this shit, and Dave Brown was just going ballistic.
Wow.
As Jim Ross once said about Bob Caudle, he's the epitome of a white man wearing brown shoes.
Wow. One of the greatest
But I love Dave. I love Dave. I only kid.
One of the greatest angles that I ever thought I ever saw, and of course it didn't lead to anything as far as big money. The night that Vader debuted at the Royal Rumble in 1996. You were his manager just instantaneously. Next night on Raw, Stockton, California, the Monday Night Wars are going on. WCW has put on 2 title changes the night before their Clash of Champions. Randy Savage beat Ric Flair. Lex and Sting beat Harlem Heat. No reason for it except the fact that it was Monday night. Let's win the ratings. On Raw, as the night of the Royal Rumble was a really hot pay-per-view. Vader comes to the ring with you to wrestle Savio Vega. It's a 2 or 3 minute enhancement. Savio Vega, I thought, was a really good hand. But Vader beats him, and then we go into this thing where Vader assaults 2 officials. Vince McMahon, who everybody knows is the owner, but he's throwing a fit on the microphone. Here comes Gorilla Monsoon, and I love Gorilla Monsoon, everything about it. His commentary was outrageous, and love Gorilla Monsoon. Vader and Gorilla and you go back and forth, suspension. I remember at one point Gorilla took off his glasses, threw them to the ground. You were nice enough, even though you were screaming at Vader and Gorilla, to pick up his glasses and put them in your pocket so they wouldn't get broken. And then Gorilla,
you saw that, eh?
I saw that. Gorilla proceeds to throw 3 Johnny Valentine, Wahoo McDaniel, Ric Flair-esque knife-edge chops, cut Vader's nipple with one of them, and proceeds to get avalanche and then Vader bombed. I thought it was an amazing piece of business. I'm a teenager, and I am literally pissed, yelling and screaming at the television. I know wrestling's a work because I'm a subscriber to the Pro Wrestling Torch. So, of course, I already know everything because everybody did. Well, everybody still does, even though they don't. So I knew this is a work. I mean, even I thought when Vader landed, he landed completely off of Gorilla. Thank God. Well, it was one of the times that Leon actually took care of somebody.
Well, and I'll tell you, first of all, the way that Gorilla with his chops cut Vader was because he had those big rings. And Gorilla had some great jewelry. And another thing about Gorilla Monsoon, everybody that knew him, at any point in time that you saw him in public, he was carrying $10,000 in cash in his pocket.
Wow.
And you would say, Gorilla, why you got that? I might want to buy something. It's walking around money for Gorilla, right? But anyway, the reason why that angle was done was because the plans had been for Vader to debut at the Royal Rumble, and then I believe it was a shoulder injury, but it found out he needed some minor surgery. So instead of holding off his debut, they let him debut at the Rumble. Then we did the angle with Gorilla, and he was suspended for whatever period of time, if it was a month or whatever. It was just a scope, I believe, on his shoulder.
Yeah.
But that was to give him time to have that done and recuperate. And I'm not sure that didn't kind of hurt his momentum at the start. And then when he came back, of course, they were always on Leon because they didn't understand what they had, and they didn't understand what they bought. And especially, I mean, Shawn Michaels was the worst one. Leon worked with a lot of guys, and, nobody was going to complain because they knew what they were in for. But, of course, Shawn Michaels squealed like a pig under a gate every time he was in the ring with Leon because that was the thing. Vader, he wouldn't injure you, but he would beat you the fuck up because that was Vader.
Right.
That's how he got over. He was a big, mean, badass, as I used to say about Bubba Rogers, a mean motor scooter and a bad go-getter, and he would beat you up in a working way and pull your hair, and he was heavy and stiff. And
Bubba
Shawn
Rogers
was gutless.
Couldn't catch a cold because he didn't catch you off the scaffold at Starrcade 86.
Well, there you go. But Shawn was gutless, and he was a big pussy, and he just didn't want to work with Leon. So Leon was scheduled for a long run with Shawn, which Shawn nipped in the bud and put the mouth on him, and then Leon in those days would get down and get cranky about things, so he probably didn't help himself, but they really had a chance to have a dominant, really monster heel there, and the people, Vince also didn't understand that's when people were starting to get smart and they were starting to like the awesome heels, and he didn't want, I said, as long as you're making noise, I don't care whether you're cheering or booing or you're jumping up, down, whatever, as long as you're not sitting there on your hands. So when I would go out and say, it's time, people would start making the V, and they'd say it's Vader time. Vince hated that. Well, he's a heel. He's a heel, pal. They shouldn't be doing that. I said, well, but they're going to, so at least let's make something out of it. It doesn't mean we're kissing babies. That just means they're liking what we're doing because it's fucking Vader and he's impressive. But anyway, so his run was doomed between Michaels and the rest of his prick clique, and just Vince not understanding what he'd gotten when he got Vader, and Vader not being a political enough to help himself. It was a lackluster run compared to what it could have been.
What a great angle. We're coming up on the hour, so I'll let you go. What a great angle, though. I mean, no one had ever done anything with Gorilla, and and then I remember it was supposed to be Vader and Yokozuna at WrestleMania. And that was one of those dream matches, and subsequently, just as soon as it was announced, Davey and Owen and Jake and Ahmed Johnson got thrown into the mix. I assume just to get those guys on the card, or there was worry about Yokozuna wind or whatever. But
I got to be honest with you. I was on the creative team at the time and still don't remember, but I think it was a situation of Yokozuna versus Vader, who's the sympathetic figure, who's the baby face, and they're not going to be setting the world on fire as far as pace in the match, so that's why everybody got added to it.
I thought the matches they did have, the short matches they did have, they had one on Raw, I think it was taped the night after, where Vader came down on Yoko's thigh, and I thought the match they had at Beware of Dog 2, the first one was a dark match. Get it? Dark match. Okay, never mind. first time was a dark match.
It certainly was. It was dark outside the building and dark inside the building.
Yeah. I thought the match they had was fine. I think if you went in there expecting what you got, I think it was fine. So, but anyway, Jim, I want to thank you for taking an hour out of your day. JimCornette.com. Jim does 2 podcasts a week, one for VIP members on MLW.com, and he does the Jim Cornette Experience with Alice Radley. JimCornette.com for all his upcoming appearances. He's got merchandise. He's got the Cornette face shirt. I want to say one more thing. If I was in charge of marketing for Dairy Queen, Jim, I would have hired you to do all our commercials, and I would have put the Cornette face on every Dairy Queen there is, because I guarantee you wrestling fans from around the world would be driving to Dairy Queen and taking pictures next to the Cornette face on a Dairy Queen. So if anybody out there has any pull in Dairy Queen marketing, Jim Cornette, he will take the work. Am I right?
Well, I tell you what, Dairy Queen I'm associated with, but my new favorite fast food place is Cookout, and everybody in North and South Carolina knows what I'm talking about, and they're spreading. So watch for a Cookout available near you, because that's the next wave of great fast food burgers in the country.
All right. Well, Jim, is there anything you want to say before we let you go?
I appreciate the plugs. I appreciate everything there. Please do visit the website. I'm on Twitter at the Jim Cornette. The new documentary, A Corny in the UK, about my 2 weeks in the United Kingdom this past February is out now and available. You can check out my live appearances. I'm going to be coast to coast, continent to continent. I'm like Sherwin-Williams. I'm covering the world, baby. And I will be in Fort Worth, Texas, September 28th at the Sendera Center for Old School Hustle. 2 o'clock live Jim Cornette Experience, 3 o'clock meet and greet, 5 o'clock bell time. I'll be the guest general manager that night. I'm going to lay down some rulings, and we're going to cause talk and suspicion. We're going to give an exhibition. We're going to find out what Texas wrestling is all about on September 28th.
All right, Jim, thank you so much. And tomorrow, Jim Cornette will be taping an interview for our friends at BoardWrestlingFan.com. Thank you so much, Jim, and have a wonderful day.
You too, David. Thanks. And I'll see you guys in Texas coming up in September.
Thank you, Jim. Bye-bye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was the legendary pro wrestling personality Jim Cornette with some candid comments. The one thing about Jim is he is 100% Jim, and he doesn't hold back, and I do respect that. I don't believe it's negativity. I believe it is honesty. And a lot of people over the years have taken a lot of shots at Jim, and he's come out swinging, defending himself, defending the over 3 decades he has put into this business. The man fell off a scaffold at Starrcade 1986 and blew out both knees for this business. He has taken butt kickings for this business, and he has given over half of his life for this business. So I have a lot of respect for Jim Cornette. He can be very candid, and, again, he is very opinionated, but that's what the world is these days. It's full of opinionated people, but I respect Jim Cornette for all of his contributions. So, Sunday, September 28th, Old School Hustle at the Sendera Center in Fort Worth, Texas. You can go to IHWE now, that's NOW.com, for all your ticket information. IHWE TV is a weekly episodic wrestling television formatted show that you can catch on IHWEnow.com and on our YouTube digital media hub, which is youtube.com/IHWE2009. Last night's episode was the Terry Gordy Memorial Battle Royal that was taped on Sunday, June 8th at the Sendera Center in Fort Worth, Texas. Black Bart, the commissioner at IHWE, was also on the program. Last week, Jim Cornette spoke to the IHWE fans. Franco D'Angelo main event Mike Fox saga that took place on June 8th. August 27th, Johnny Gargano goes one-on-one with Thomas Shire, and Tim Storm battles the Wrestling Hall of Famer, IHWE, Spoiler 2000. Also, every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time is IHWE Weekly Wrestling Radio. Last night we had the Grappler Lynn Denton on. We've had the $1 Million Man Teddy DiBiase, We've had Jim Cornette, we've had Standalarian Hansen, we've had Mick Foley, we've had Gorgeous Gary Young, and several others. And you can find all the archives at IHWEnow.com. You can also find the archives over at our YouTube page, which is IHWE2009. So, lots to do there. You can also watch the 2014 Texas Wrestling Hall of Fame induction ceremony as well. Want to give a shout-out to our great team. Our graphic design team is Iron Skull Productions. You can find him at ironskullproductions.com. He does amazing work. He's one of the best people I've ever met in professional wrestling. Joe Kent, he runs BoardWrestlingFan.com. He also runs digital media for IHWE as far as our website. Johnny T runs the IHWE TV Week television show via YouTube, does all the editing and publishing. He has a YouTube page at Johnny T Wrestling. So check out our people. Michael McCurdy runs IHWE Weekly Wrestling Radio. I'm stepping in today to host a special podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let me get my thing going here, and I believe we're on the line with Roxy. Are you there?
I am there. David, how are you? I'm actually walking outside, so bear with me.
Not a problem. Roxy is a gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling alumnus, and she was on our show a few weeks ago with some of the other gorgeous Lady of Wrestling alumnus, and she's really working very hard at making a special event happening. Tell us about the AfterGlow Party.
Well, the AfterGlow is something that I've kind of thought about it for a while. In fact, it kind of came about, I'm sure, did you see Glow, the documentary, the movie? Did you see that, David? Hello?
Here.
Hello?
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, did you see the Glow, the documentary?
I did see Glow, the documentary, and I thought it was absolutely awesome.
Okay, well, I just remember we did a Q&A after the documentary, and all the girls came on stage, and there was just something there. I'm like, this is really neat. I mean, to get all these girls on stage, and we were getting the questions from the audience, and we were kind of giving it back to them. So, this would be kind of a cool show to do. So I kind of had it in the back of my mind, and something I ended up going. I went to this play. It was on Melrose, and it was like a really cool venue, small and kind of intimate. And I thought a dream of mine would be to bring the girls there, have them close enough to the audience, and just have a fun time. So I came up, since it's not Glow, it is the AfterGlow fan party. So it's kind of like we're throwing a party for them. We're giving it to them. They're giving it back to us. And we're on Facebook all the time, aren't we, David? I mean, you see me all the time.
Yes, she is. And I am posting it. I'm posting the link right now. The IHWE
again.
Yes, the IHWE Facebook page has it. My page has it. I'm going to be tweeting it out. The AfterGlow fan party. It's on Kickstarter, and all the support you can give them, the most littlest amount will go a long way. And it sounds really cool. And
well, the good thing, let me add this, David. Can I add this?
Go ahead.
That we decided to do a DVD because we had a lot of people going, well, I can't be there. Well, guess what? You can now be there because now we're going to film it. And we're going to do some behind the scenes for, I think the donation is $25 for a DVD, and then I think it's $50 for a signed, we call it a pledge, $50 for a sign. So this kind of just came about because a lot of the fans felt like they were like, well, I want to be there, and they can't. They're, eventually, hopefully, we'll go to their city, but for now, we added that. So hopefully that'll be more an incentive.
I think it is. It's a great incentive. So fans all over the world, no matter where you are, and Glow, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling, for so many years was a pop culture phenomenon. I've said it, and I still say it because it is. It aired in so many different markets in so many different countries. It was featured on Married with Children. It was the epitome of professional wrestling at the time. And so the documentary was great. The documentary was one of the best produced wrestling documentaries I'd ever seen. And it was very emotional. It was very emotional, especially towards the end with Mountain Fiji. And, y'all all getting together, and it really hit me. The two that I remember the most, I was a kid when it was going on, so the two ladies I remember the most were Big Bad Mama and Mountain Fiji. And so
they were the giants. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, they were. When I saw that documentary and I saw that Fiji was able to come to the reunion, and then of course Big Bad Mama passed away, I think shortly thereafter the reunion. It was very emotional, and I was so glad all you ladies got together and got to see each other before that happened. So we're never promised tomorrow. You know, we're bringing a bunch of wrestling legends down here in September, and they were Jim Cornette was just in the line.
Oh.
He said, "You got so many people coming. We're not promised tomorrow. Nobody is."
Right.
So
right. Yeah. No, we're not. And yeah, that's true.
People need to take advantage of the opportunity to get together. So if you ladies can get together,
we have. I think we're up to about 12 or 13 girls. I'm even reaching out to more. So as time goes on, more girls are jumping on board, and they're getting more excited about it as the numbers go up. I mean, obviously, any pledge is a good pledge. We appreciate anything and everything, and we just need to make that mark by August 31st. And it's funny, David, because I keep putting 18 days left, and then I look at the Kickstarter. For some reason, it goes 17. Okay, I go into a panic. I'm like, 17 days left.
Time is literally ticking away.
It is, well, but I'm like, you know, it's like when you're at a restaurant and like, you know, you get up and go to the bathroom and then your food shows up and it's like,
yes,
I can't keep looking at this thing. But I am going to keep talking to the fans and, you know, reaching out to them, and with your help, you've been a great help, by the way. I just want to let you know that, and I'm glad I got to know you. And you have a beautiful baby, by the way, too.
Thank you. He takes after his mother, thank God.
I've been doing my research.
He takes after his mother, thank God.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I'm glad to help because I was a big fan growing up. I watched it every week before it came on, before WWF Superstars. Like I said, I saw the documentary. Me and my wife watched it, and I'm glad to help. Anything I can do to help is more of a pleasure. Fans, if you don't have a link, if you don't have a direct link for this for whatever reason, and you're listening through this either live or through download, go to Kickstarter.com and type in the search bar AfterGlow, and the link, it'll come up. It'll come up.
Absolutely,
so
yeah. And there are some really funny perks and funny things on it. You can take it seriously or not at the end. Like, you know, you can have a date with me for 1,000, bodyguard included. Yeah, like Roxy needs a bodyguard. No.
Right. I don't think there's anybody out there that you can't take down.
Yeah, so. I could be a bodyguard.
That's right.
But I wish are you coming? I mean, I know you live. That would be great if you and your wife could come.
When is it again? When is it going to happen?
We're going to do it in October. It's going to be October. Okay. I don't have a date set because this still all falls on this. And the reason why I did the Kickstarter, because I wanted the hype, I wanted the excitement, and it's working. It's going slow, then it goes fast, but it's working because now people are kind of going, what is this? But I'm relentless on the computer. I am on there, and I notice you are too. So big thanks to you.
Oh, no
and
problem.
We actually released it. Didn't we release it to you first?
Yes, you did. You came on with all the other girls, and you actually released it before it went on Kickstarter. So we were looking for it.
I wasn't going to that day. MTV actually got on, and she did, and I'm like, oh, crap. I'm still going through the works of it. Now I really have to put it out. So I finalized it, and you put me on the spot. I had to do it. So it was born.
Well, I'm glad to do it. I'm glad to do it. Anything we can help. I will have Michael, who hosts our Wednesday night show. We will get you on. We did this before. We did this with another wrestling documentary. The guy was pretty far out on his goal. He came on our show, and he only had 3 or 4 days left, and he made his goal. So what we will do is I will make sure that Michael gets you on our Wednesday night show on August 27th, even if it's just for a few minutes, to get your last plug in.
Oh, I'm going to be a wreck on August 27th. I'm going to be a nut job.
It's all right. That might make for great radio. That might get you more pledges.
Oh, my God. Yeah, let's all watch Roxy go insane. This would be great. This would be worth $1.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So we will get you back on August 27th.
Okay, well, that would be really cool. And I want people to know, too, I mean, these girls, I mean, they're ready to talk. They have questions. We're going to turn our questions on the audience, on our fans that we want to know about us. I mean, there's things that we don't know, and we're going to have a fan hot seat where we put a fan in the hot seat where we get to ask our certain fans questions. So there's a lot of surprises in this, so even to get the DVD, and now that we're going to film it, I think it's going to be even that much cooler. So even if you're not there, David, I'll send you a DVD. How's that?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to make a pledge. I have it written down. I have it circled on my calendar, the pledge before it's over with. So I'm just kind of biding my time. But I will be getting
to the end, right?
No. I will be making a pledge. I'm also looking at our finances to see. I want to give the most that I can. So
I hear it. We appreciate anything, though, too, because to me it just means that, you know what, you're a part of it. And you know what, I'm not going to say if, I'm going to say when we do raise it, it'll be amazing. And I have to, like, kick butt from that day to get everything going. But all the girls that so far, I keep adding more, are on board. So, I mean, it's exciting that everybody's, you know, hopping on, go away, motorcycle, one by one. And I'm talking to a lot of them. And we're all still pretty close, too. So, and that's really rare.
Yes.
And you know that in the wrestling world.
Yes, it is. If you've ever wanted an opportunity to revisit and meet some of the gorgeous ladies of wrestling, here's your opportunity, and make this happen so everybody can enjoy it. The girls can enjoy it. The fans can enjoy it. You can be part of something really special, the inaugural AfterGlow Party. Let's get this thing started so there will be more coming to different cities. Let's get this going, folks. So go to Kickstarter and put in AfterGlow. On IHWE Facebook page right now, the link is on. Click on it, pledge whatever you can, and Roxy, I will be in touch with you, and we'll try to make this happen.
All right. Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it, and hopefully the trucks in the background weren't too bad.
Oh, no
problem.
Your
help. We all do, okay?
No problem, Roxy.
All
Thank you, and have a wonderful day.
All
Take
right.
care.
You too. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Dave. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Roxy from the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. The Afterglow Party is happening, and they need all the help they can get. So let's make this happen, ladies and gentlemen. If you go to IHWE Facebook page, that's facebook.com/IHWE Pro Wrestling, you can see the link up, and I am going to get this on Twitter. I can see here. I can get it here right now. I'm going to put it on Twitter. So let me get this out. Anyway, on IHWE's Twitter and my Twitter, you can check out the Afterglow Party. I want to thank Jim Cornette for joining us in the first hour, and I want to thank Roxy for coming on and kind of updating us on where they stand on the Afterglow Party. Hey, it looks like it's going to be a pretty impressive deal. It's going to be sometime in October, and looks like many of the personalities from the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling will be there. A great group of ladies who worked really, really hard. If you haven't seen the Glow documentary, you're missing out. They worked really, really hard, and they had a huge impact on pop culture, especially in the 80s when just a bunch of crazy stuff was going on. So, like I said, Married with Children. They were on Married with Children, which was probably one of the hottest television shows to air of all time, and they were a part of that. So we are honored to be working with them. Roxy did a promo for IHWE TV that should be popping up over the next couple of weeks, rolling out in one of the episodes. Whew. So, anyways, ladies and gentlemen, IHWEnow.com for everything IHWE. August 30th is Showdown. It will be a live television taping for IHWE Television. The main event is 2 out of 3 falls. It's a triple threat match for the Dallas Fort Worth title. Americos will defend against Too Much Metal Gregory James and Ashton Jacobs. Yours truly will be the special guest referee. Main event, Mike Fox goes one-on-one with the Blackheart Seshai. Peyton Gates makes her IHWE debut against former IHWE Tag Team Champion Miss Dyslexia. Thomas Shire has an open contract out to any wrestler, current or retired, He is putting it up and saying, I will wrestle anybody in the state of Texas, current or retired. I will be making the final decision, and Thomas Shire won't find out until all of you do, until he is literally staring across the ring from his opponent on August 30th. Black Bart's also going to be there. Also, the 7-foot-tall Kevin Cross, colossal Kevin Cross, will be in action that night. Brian Ryder, an IHWE original, will be having his final match that night when he takes on Gigolo James Johnson. And as announced this morning as an IHWEnow.com exclusive, you won't see this match anywhere else except IHWEnow.com. Kyle Hopp, the Native American superstar, will battle the Chinese warrior Li Fang in a match that I can't wait to watch. Black Bart will also be appearing. WWE alumni Charlie Haas will also be appearing. Roxy Carmichael, the Panther City pinup, you've seen her on TNT's Dallas. She's going to be the host. Dole King from World Class Championship Wrestling is going to be the master of ceremonies. The Bats man, Matt Avery, will be there. Johnny T will be there. IHWE TV cameras will be there. It's going to be a lot of fun. That's Saturday night, August 30th at Action Martial Arts Showdown. You can find out all the information at IHWEnow.com. And Sunday, September 28th, Old School Hustle, Jim Cornette, Stan Hansen, Charlie Haas, Kyle O'Reilly, the Grappler Lynn Denton, Barbara Goodish, just some of the names that will be there. Matt Revere, the IHW champion, will be there. Franco D'Angelo goes one-on-one with Main Event Mike Fox. Tim Storm teams up with Pro Wrestling Noah alumni Bull Schmidt to take on Spoiler 2000 and a mystery partner. Kyle O'Reilly, the PWG heavyweight champion, one half of the Ring of Honor tag team champions, is going to go one-on-one with Matt Fickett. The Submission Squad returns from Missouri. They have a great wrestling lineage in Missouri, and they have put out a challenge to any 3 Texas wrestlers for a good old-fashioned 6-man tag in Fort Worth, the Dallas-Fort Worth territory, where the 6-man tag match is the king. And that's just a few of the matches, ladies and gentlemen. We haven't even announced all the matches. You're going to have to come on September 28th. And remember, 2 o'clock, Jim Cornette Experience. 3 p.m., order your VIP tickets now because there's only a limited amount. For $20, you get a front row seat, you get a poster, you're going to have a photo opportunity with the old NWA Texas Heavyweight and Texas Tag Team Championship, and you're going to get in a whole hour before anybody else and have the opportunity to meet the superstars and the legends. And at 4 o'clock, we're going to start with IHWEnow.com exclusive live matches in the ring. There's going to be a pre-show on IHWE Radio where we're actually going to be calling the IHWEnow.com matches. We're going to be calling those matches on the radio show, play-by-play on the radio. To see the matches, they will be airing on IHWEnow.com throughout the fall of this year. 5 o'clock, Old School Hustle begins. There will be a post-show. And the day after, Monday, September the 29th, there will be a special IHWE radio presentation called The Day After. You'll have post-show interviews. You'll have reflections. Who knows who's going to be on the air that day, who's going to stop over and say hello. So there's so much going on that weekend. There's going to be a video game tournament on Saturday the 27th. There is so much going on that weekend, and we're going to be updating you over the next few days on what's going on and when, so the fans all over Texas can take part in these festivities. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm signing off. I want to thank everybody for joining us, listening wherever you are. Next Wednesday, IHWE Radio returns at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Listen to the Jim Cornette Experience, JimCornette.com. He has 2 podcasts he does every week. One is the regular Jim Cornette Experience, and the other is a Cornette Drive-Thru, which is a VIP selection that is available at MLW.com. And remember, the AfterGlow Party is on Kickstarter.com. Type in AfterGlow Party, or go to IHWE's Facebook page or our Twitter page and click on the link and make your pledges. Roxy will be back on the air Wednesday night, August 27th, to tell us more. For joining us, ladies and gentlemen, and have a wonderful day wherever you are. Thank you.